Thank you, Rob. Thank you so much. What a wonderful day to start. What a wonderful way to start the day. It's morning here for me in the central zone of the US. So it's a great way to begin with your lovely music. Thank you, Rob. So I'm Lisa Marcus, and along with Aviv Shahar and several of us from the Portals of Perception team, we are here for another experiment, a new day. And I had a friend from Denmark who shared something with me. At the beginning of the year, we were on a call, a few of us, and he said, "Today's a new day. It's never happened before." So that's kind of become my mantra now. Today is a new day, and today is a new event, and it's never happened before. So we're really open to what wants to happen and what wants to join us and see what we can get up to. So to say one thing before I turn it over to Aviv, I'm always so pleased to be part of these events because we all feel, I think we all can feel that we're in times that are of great change. And we are trying to navigate this shift and transition as we are moving from one epoch to another. So it's great to be able to take time to come together as friends and experiment with what is actually, not experiment, but to explore what is actually going on right now. And how, with this knowledge and understanding that Aviva will share with us today and that we will get up to together, it really helps to strengthen us and settle us as we make our way into the future. So I'm excited to be here. Thank you all for coming. It's great to see you, a couple of new faces and some old friends. And Aviv, I am going to turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, Lisa, and thank you all for coming into this adventure, which we call the soul's journey in between epochs. Now, let me begin by describing how today is going to play out and how participative and engaging we hope today will become. I will begin with a brief update to catch us up on the portals into the soul story, and then proceed from there to frame the main story, the main theme we are abiding with today, this idea of an epoch that is ending, an epoch that is dying, and a new epoch that is emerging, and the liminal space in between. And this is where I will bring forward the first inquiry to meditate and contemplate and invite your contributions by thought, by movement, by poetry, by imagery. What we want today to be is an opportunity to bring the, the multiple pathways, the multiple talents, the multiple faculties, so that we can bring the intuitive whole person intelligence gathering that we can be together. So that first inquiry will be, well, what is it like to be part of this transition phase when one epoch is ending and a new epoch is beginning? And then we will build into it an understanding and reflection about the meta-crisis. And the point we will get to when we bring the meta-crisis will be to describe some aspects, not go too deep into this, but some aspects of the meta-crisis that they are actually a symptom, a byproduct of this epochal transition. That would be the first main point. And the second main point in that segment will be actually bringing the parallel interior dimension. Any crisis point you can describe and look at on the world stage has an interior dimension that mirrors it, that we can frame by way of an inquiry that is a soul concern. So we'll We'll abide with that for a bit, and there again, the inquiry will be, okay, what is it that we are observing that we can do individually and collectively to help facilitate the soul to be more fully resilient, and all of us as people, wherever we find ourselves in. And from there, we will proceed to several core premises. Actually, I have 8 core premises that I want to visit. I don't know if we'll get to all of those. We'll see how we are doing with time, but these will be core premises about the soul's journey. And somewhere around there, we will likely do a segment in rooms, so there can be an opportunity for each and every one of you to come inside the conversation, probably in rooms of 3, some rooms of 3, some rooms of 4. We'll see how it plays out. For a short visit, 12 minutes. And then when we come back, we'll complete those premises. And then there is a segment where we want to reflect on several previous major epochal transitions and reflect on how significant those transitions were and how it is that the human soul enabled and facilitated these transitions, and then again turn to your intuition. And this will be a point to bring your intuition about what is it that we are sensing, intuiting about this epochal transitional change. And the point I will make there is that those previous epochal transitions, as significant as they were, what's occurring now and what is about to unfold, I'm proposing in the next couple of centuries, is going to be even more significant than all of them together. And then from that, we will name several challenges of the transitions, and then also visit and explore and reflect on some of the significant possibilities that are arising in this liminal time. One of which will be the possibility of spontaneous healing. What is spontaneous healing? Why are we seeing, why will we see, I suggest, more spontaneous healing in the coming decades? And what's the significance of it? And depends where we are with time. We want to reflect on several pivots, from 2 pivots, not by declaring that those are pivots from the old epoch to the new epoch, but inviting our faculties, our inner lives, and our souls to listen to these pivots and discover what and which resonates. So as each of the inquiry we present, the invitation will be to respond to these by speaking or by movement or by drawing, or in any way you choose. Part of the awareness in this is that we cannot make the transition from one epoch to the next just with our heads, just with concepts. We actually need the whole human person, the full inner orchestra, the inner lives, all the faculties, all the capabilities, all the talents, all the intelligence lines to participate in the discovery. And the intent is to, the last segment, to land with perhaps several voices broadcasting a message you would want to offer at this time to all our sister and brothers, souls all over the planet. So I am aware that what I described now is not a 3-hour workshop. I'm fully aware that what I described is possibly a 2 or 3 day, full day workshop. But that's what turned up in terms of content. So no pressure, no worries. If we only get to 60 or 70% of that, that's okay. So that's the flow for today. Let me bring the slides and just get us started into the catch-up of the portals into the soul's journey. So indeed, the soul's journey in between epochs. The portals into the soul journey started early 2024. The preamble essentially set out to establish three intentions or three premises. One, it described why was and how this work was arising now. Second, it clearly stated that we were not going to engage with in a comparative study of how the soul is treated by different teachers, by different esoteric bodies of work, by different scriptures and different faith traditions. And rather, we were going to embark on this as a discovery journey. And therefore, the invitation was whatever you have studied in any background in terms of definitions of the soul, perhaps put it gently down for a minute as you come into this, so you don't have to argue at definitional conceptual terms. Just let yourself experiment with whatever it is that we are describing and see how it resonates. You don't have to believe or agree with anything I'm saying. Just take it in and take it on as something to try to test how it feels and how it resonates. And the third thing the preamble set out to do was to describe that we were going to explore the story of the soul concurrently with the story of the evolving epoch. Chapter 1 describes the threefold brief of the soul, those three lives, three characters. The guardian of life that essentially works to keep us alive all the days of our lives. The steward of learning that forever is nudging us forward to improve situations, to take in new learning, to develop new skills, new capacities. And the champion of higher purpose, which is the impulse to forever sense and attune to greater purpose of life. And in some future chapters, we will describe how that is actually the part of the soul that's attuned to the spirit. We haven't said that in chapter 1, but is to unfold and be part of the evolving story. Chapter 2 decodes the nature of separation events. What are separation events? Why is it that we are, each one of us would experience, likely early in our life, in childhood, some separation events, some more traumatic, some less traumatic. And then it maps the appreciation, the understanding of the double anguish of the soul and how that tends to produce a psychology in the soul which then turns up as a compensatory act because the soul has been separated from its natural versatility, buoyancy, and full freedom and range. So it makes a copycat act of the behavior that emulates that blissful original state that it was in. And this is often treated in the world of therapy through the understanding of shadow. So what we're doing in chapter 2 is we attempted to go beyond that and try to explain the mechanics of that. And then in chapter 3, what we did was we began with codifying the Einstein brief to essentially say we cannot solve the problems we've created at the same level of thinking, the same level of process, at the same frame of mind that actually generated these problems, which was also a way to give ourselves permission to not endeavor to immediately try to solve the problem that we encountered in chapter 2. Instead of that, we open an expanding loom of processes that began to describe the symphonic orchestration of the soul and its sevenfold pattern. it also, in chapter 3, I describe a desperate solo navigation night when I lost my way, and I integrated that story as a metaphor for the human condition, entering the contemplation of, is it possible, could it be that humanity at large, we've actually lost touch with the terrain? And that led us to chapter 4, where it guides us into a space-making process by integrating permanent line inquiries. Permanent line inquiries are inquiries we choose to live into every day of our lives. Some of the inquiries we're pursuing in the soul work I have lived into for many, many decades. Why space making? Because we're living in a very crowded time. One of the realizations is that the first move, the first act of a journey to discover and make contact with the soul and liberate the greater versatility of the soul begins with creating space. Creating, yes, mental space, but not just mental space, creating psychological space, emotional space, energetic space. Creating space becomes a very important element of in a developing journey at this time because of the never-ending noise that the modern and postmodern world fills us with. And it also describes, chapter 4, the post-ideological transition and brought us to this point in the 20th century where we have largely been indoctrinated with materialistic, reductionist, what you can sometimes call scientism, which is that I make a distinction between scientism and science. Science is wonderful. Scientism is when the reductionist material paradigm becomes dogmatic. And we presented that, again, to make space to re-engage with the soul. And then we, in chapter 5, demonstrate how to talk to your brain. And we tell the story of the DNA moment of the 20th century. This was that moment when we thought that all our problems, all illness, all disease will be eliminated because we're going to unlock the genome, secret of the genome, only to discover that, guess what, that didn't happen. Now, curiously, that moment in time parallels with those optimistic and far-reaching visions of the early 90s, when Fukuyama also announced that it was the end of history, only to discover that it wasn't the end of history. Actually, the epoch transition continued. So we did that to reflect that now we are in the moment of the brain. We now think that the fantastical research that is being developed into cognitive science and the understanding of the brain, and that coupled with very sophisticated, groundbreaking development, technological development, primarily AI and others, will actually solve all our problems. And the suggestion was that, well, perhaps not. Perhaps these are great developments, but perhaps as a core premise for us here in this journey, well, we are about to discover that humanity will seek to re-engage the soul. Chapter 6, which we are releasing in 2 weeks, offers a backstory that explains why this work is emerging in its current form, why these events are central to the unfolding of this work, and also how I stumbled into the mysteries of the soul and the spirit. So that's by way of a bit of a background. And the event today, this journey in between epochs, is a bridge, really, from this work and towards the work that will be developed in chapter 7 and 8 later this year, where we will begin to explore an even larger panorama in the relationship between the soul and the self. We will make a point that the self and the soul are not the same, they're actually different, and we'll explore the trilogy of the self, the soul, and the spirit. So that will become part of where we will be heading into in chapter 7 and 8 and beyond. So with that, I would like now to bring us into the focus of today and recognize that when we describe the soul's journey in between epochs, we are presenting to ourselves the actuality of needing to navigate through an epochal shift. And what I'm about to paint here, and then I will begin to invite intuitions, and actually we'll begin in dwelling with that, and then we'll bring some intuitions. What I'm about to frame here is the realization that we are each one life. So we are experiencing the multifaceted nature of all that's occurring in a life when three primary processes are concurrently arising. One is that one epoch is dying. And we, even if we're not conscious of it, even if we don't want to, we are in one way or another grappling with the conditioning of an old epoch is no longer going to be sufficient. So we need to find a way to release. It's not even that we need to, it will force its way upon us. So that's process one. The fact that one epoch is dying. The second, I'm actually going to first frame the third process. The third process is that a new epoch is emerging. So we are living in this in-between world. One part of us, one epoch is dying, another epoch is birthing, is emerging. And primarily what we are experiencing is that there is this liminal transition, sometimes can be described as the uncanny valley of the journey in between these two processes. So the question I would present to you, and as I said at the beginning, I'll reiterate now, when we present an inquiry like this, the invitation is not to think that we should answer the question. Rather, it's an invitation to live into the inquiry. That's, if you like, one potential pivot from an old epoch to a new epoch, from seeking answers to living into inquiry. That's one way to consider the transition. And so my inquiry that I will invite you to reflect on, and will ask first Rob to give us the first 2-3 minutes of music. And maybe Rob can be brought on screen with me. And in response to this inquiry, what is it like to be in a liminal transition where one part of us dies while another is being born? And you sense into this, Rob, with music while everybody is contemplating with this. And let's see if we can get some intelligence about that. Thank you. Thank you, Rob. So yeah, a starter. Let's see if there are any contributions here. As you think into this, let me offer us a starter. We've each had the experience that at certain moments we feel fatigued and weak and even old perhaps, and you can sometime within a matter of minutes feel energized and renewed. So what is it that enables us at times to shift and or concurrently even be in a part of us that's old or that is dying, and a part that's completely vibrantly renewed? Or we've each had the experience, you speak to a person and they're depressed and disgruntled and all the rest of it. And then within few sentences, it's as though they shifted to a whole other part of themselves. So you can see in the same person that there are actually these two processes. One that's engaged with, you could call them the forces of dying, and another part that's engaged with the vibrancies of birthing anew. And at a simple level, at a cellular level, the intestinal cells, well, they renew about every 2 to 5 days. So at this moment, right this moment, at a biological level, we are each both dying and being renewed and rebirthed anew. So what we are describing here is something that's occurring at the biological level, and we are simply suggesting that it also occurs at a whole other greater epoch transition level. So I'm curious if anybody is ready to offer any contributions, any thoughts, any comments to this. Please, Emmy.
Yes, hello everyone. Well, this enchanting music was sounding. A few lines arose in me, and they are the part that dies is rebelling, wants to stand its ground. Another part questions if there is value in the process of acknowledging that something no longer serves human purpose. And humility is needed to welcome a part that is more fit. And my experience is that the part that is rebelling can be hurting, physically so even. And after a sifting process, there is space to breathe again.
Thank you. Thank you, Emmy. Please, Nigel.
Let go, something will catch you. If you don't interfere, go with the flow. Trust in the process, not in what you think you know.
Thank you, Nigel. Please, Kiriki.
Hello, everyone. I was trying to note the feeling that comes when we step into unknown territory. For example, when we step in a dark room and we cannot see. And I think the soul then, because it feels unsafe, or a part of the soul that feels unsafe, projects all kinds of fears that are unresolved or maybe traumatic experiences or inadequacies. So it can work like a mirror that magnifies whatever is ghostly, let's say, or shadow. But there is also another part that yearns for the new, yearns for the mystery. And maybe there is a leap there that one can make. So these are the thoughts. On the one hand, the fear. On the other hand, the yearning for the new.
Thank you. Thank you, Kiriki. So a hint there for the integration of polarities, the trepidation and the fear, and the yearning and the hope. Could it be that one of the capacities we are asked to develop in the liminal transition is indeed the capacity to more fully integrate these polarities, where actually fear and yearning, trepidation and hope can live concurrently inside the same person at the same time? Please, Rita.
Well, the contemplation really stimulated more questions than answers. And something that came up was very much to do with the three aspects of the soul and their concurrent action. And what I'm left wondering about is what kinds of states and what kinds of actions would facilitate a state where all three aspects of the soul will listen to one another. Because I learned this amazing fact yesterday, that amazed me anyway, that every 10 years we get a new skeleton. It's a bit slower than the intestinal renewal, but it doesn't arrive in the post every 10 years to the dot. It's going on every moment, and it is completely trustworthy. It is happening. It is natural, it's coded, it's inbuilt, and that is in the guardian of life aspect of the soul very much. And that's set up, it works, it runs. And I thought, if the human was not conditioned away from what is natural, it would make sense that the other aspects, the learning and the higher purpose seeking, would be equally natural, even though they involve more deliberate choice and desire and need. So I'm just left with a kind of soft inquiry into how in my daily going on of life to better harmonize the three aspects so that the two more choice-based and voluntary aspects would surrender and trust to the reliability of the guardian of the soul that is in part in charge and in tune with all the automatic renewals.
Thank you. Thank you, Rita. What was it you were exploring when you were doing movement? What was the feeling that was coming up with you when you were exploring this inquiry with movement? Because this is one of the, again, ways, capacities we want to encourage in this work, that we don't have to just get into it with words, but we can engage this entire can-do brilliant system.
Well, it had three main frequencies with variations. One of them was letting go. But what you let go of actually becomes, it kind of aggregates, like in the forest, you get the soil in the forest is very, very rich because there's years and decades and hundreds of years sometimes of layers of what the trees have let go of. They don't hang on to the old leaves. It becomes nourishing part of the ecology. And then there was, then to jump into the third one, there was a new growth that was like a mixing and marrying. It wasn't just a linear growth, but there were things that were interweaving in the new liberation. But something that felt really essential in between was this in-between space, that it needs the space, and that space, if you can be with it, it gets very charged. And that somehow becomes like a dynamo that will help keep the other two going in continuum, because they're not separate chapters, they're a continuum.
This is a good example of how we want to, we need to engage the intuitive, imaginative faculties that would describe things in ways other than concepts, because some of the relief, some of the release of intelligence will appear in these other pathways. I am okay. I'm going to take Beth and then wait with the other hands for the next one, which builds on this. Please, Beth.
So I'm actually going to stand up and move a little bit while I'm talking.
Do you need music or okay, you're talking?
No, it's so as I was thinking about things coming to a close and things beginning, I realized there was a limitation in range. And so I started to explore, what is my range today? Both, is it more expansive, or is it coming in and making things more small so there's more space? Is it that I need to reach up for something new or connective, or is it that I need to ground or play here in the middle to find things? Is it that something is moving to go high, or maybe to move down to doing something? So I was playing with the range of it to see in myself, where's the opening into the new, and what does that say about where I might be letting things go or limited, because that's not where the energy of things is. When they complete, that energy also comes to a more of a completion and then opens. So to find it in myself, where is the range of motion? And then as I do that, I'm listening. What is it that's offering inside intelligence about what this might have to do with? And that was the nature of process that I found myself in with this very extraordinary music. Just to see what's finishing, what's opening up.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you, Beth. You're demonstrating how we can play and be experimental. And this particular theme that you're exploring exploring the range is such an important central idea in the work with the soul, because so much of what we are seeking when we talk about liberating the soul is liberating the soul to a larger, greater range. What's holding the soul from its fuller range? Well, it's all those things, some of which we talked about, including our psychologies, including our traumas. And that gives me a very concrete entry to building on that and introducing this idea of the meta-crisis and soul's concerns And as I offered at the beginning, there are 2 points, 2 main points I'm about to seek to establish. One is that whatever we describe as an exterior, intractable crisis point, and there are probably 24 that you could focus on. I chose to just bring to focus 5. I'm proposing the entirety of what we are describing as the meta-crisis is a symptom, is a byproduct of an operating system, an epochal operating system, primarily the modern operating system that evolved over the last 4 centuries, that has reached an obsolescence point. So everything is coming to a halt or breaking down or imploding. So that's premise 1. Meta-crisis is an expression, a symptom of the epoch transition. Premise 2, whatever we see outside in the world also is arising inside us, and I'm going to present an inquiry, a soul inquiry about it. So I'm going to bring up the 5 quite swiftly, because the point today is not to dwell in it, not to become depressed about it, but really to bring it as a context. And then I will ask, well, what is it that is fortifying and encouraging and strengthening for the soul in the face of that, and in the idea of hospicing an old epoch and liberating a new one. So, point number 1, crisis number 1 is energy. There is tremendous energy crisis. Some people believe we've reached peak oil already a few years ago. If you think about it, in just a couple of centuries, we've managed to burn through extract and burn what took not just 2 centuries, but millions and millions and millions of years for the planet to produce. So we are overdrawn, we are a major overdraft on the energy frontier, and by geological timescales. So I'm now not proposing the solution and how will we transition to renewal or to solar energy. The very smart people, smarter than I, who are working on this. What I want us to bring to our awareness is that the energy problem is not just a planetary problem, it's an interior concern. And we want to ask, what causes energy depletion in the human? And one that's leading to fragmentation and fatigue and exhaustion of mental, psychic, and spiritual capacities. And obviously, when you ask the question like this, you can turn it around and say, well, what would alleviate that condition and will facilitate energetic renewal in the human condition? Then couple that with the ecological issue, global warming, the environmental concern. There's a lot that we have learned about that over the last several decades. And part of what we're doing now is, in this exercise right this minute, we're not trying to react to it with emotion. We're trying to find an interior, intact place that looks at what the case is. And instead of being reactive to it, takes in the information and the context and allows the soul to also dwell with it rather than with our psychology, run with psychology or with emotions about it, although these cannot be ignored and cannot be denied either. So here, the interior question is, well, if we say that the planet is heating up, let us reflect and ask what causes the heating of the blood in humans, and what brings up the emotional processes that create internal global warming, rather than the natural cooling needed by the soul. Both the brain, we know that the brain functions better when we don't run hot, when we run cool. The soul too, the soul prefers, the soul even much more so than the brain, who can be fast and electric. The soul has all the speed it needs, and it also loves to be in the slow magnetic settlement rather than the heated condition. So we would ask, what would enable the human, its interiority, to alleviate and relieve the interior global warming? Again, where part of the premise we're exploring is, could it be that we can't actually solve those crisis points at the same level that were created? Do we need to source in ourselves different capacities and intelligences? Number three is pretty obvious, never-ending wars. We thought those were left behind, but we've seen in the last few years that we have major kinetic wars in areas where we hoped wars were behind us. So our subject now is not geopolitical breakdown. Our inquiry is simply what triggers unbridled reactivity and chronic conflict in humans. And what is it that could enable, would facilitate deep settlement, peace, and well-being? I'm suggesting that some of the answers are inside us by reintegrating the soul. The fourth one I would add is the depleting oceanic habitats. We know that this planet, more than anything, is filled with water. And the ecologies, the habitats of the oceans are so very important for planetary well-being, for planetary health, and for our health. Without the oceans, we cannot sustain life on the planet the way we know it. So the inquiry we present here in the interior parallel process is of the internal salted water, and you know that the internal salted water, and by the way, we also are by majority water more than anything else. And you know that our interior water are salted because when you cry and you taste your tears, you know that they're a little salted. Oh, by the way, when we cry for different reasons, if you pay attention, the taste of the tears is different because a different emotion that induces different chemical compound that is expressed through tears. So what we are asking, are the internal salted water of the human still conductive? Or are they too saturated with all that hinders the flow of fine, subtle energies? Because we understand that part of our well-being is to do with the subtle energy fields that are continually pulsating in the various layers of our energy field. And what is the conductor, what is the biological conductor of those subtle energies? Well, an important part of it are the interior water in our body. But what those interior waters and their electrolytes carry is very much the substance that determines the degree, the level of interior conductivity. For example, the functionality of higher perception that we will touch on when we talk about the profound possibilities that are emerging now in this liminal zone. They partly are dependent on the energetic quality that infuses those which I'm describing here as the salted waters of the human. And finally, to make the picture even more compound, I'm bringing the leadership breakdown. Anywhere you look in the world, we see breakdown of governmental structures, of leadership, There's no longer any leadership system in the world that retains its old credibility. Institutions and everywhere lost credibility. And that's part of the crisis of this moment, which is that the intensification of other crises, humanity finds itself less capable to collaborate, less capable to mount collective action, and you are literally experiencing and seeing the breakdown of what I'm describing as the modern operating system. And the interior question that I bring to our attention is, well, why is it so true, and why is it so essential that self-leadership, why is true self-leadership essential for personal growth and navigation through times of change? So we propose right at the beginning of the soul journey that we are each self-arising, self-responsible, self-directing. I'm not anyone's teacher or anyone's guru. In fact, we need all the talents, all the capabilities, all the levels of development, because they're all part of the human story that we are unfolding with. And we need to find a way to facilitate the maturation of the entire system. So now I bring us back to the question, and will invite again that we take a moment with this question. First with music, either a Rob, or if we have another musical contribution from anybody, that would be great. I know we have some other musicians here. And the question I'd like us to dwell with musically, by movement, by drawing, is, well, what enables us, humanity, to tenderly hospice a dying epoch while caringly midwifing the birth of a new one? So I'm deliberately using the affirmative language here, because somebody could argue back and say, well, what enables us? We don't seem to be doing too good a job at it at the moment, but I will propose to you that there is a lot that's emerging with many people all over the planet that brings these kind of sentiments and sensibilities and orientations. They may be using different language, different frameworks, different developmental schemes and frameworks. All of it is fine. I propose that we are in the process of tenderly hospicing a dying epoch and caringly midwifing the birth of a new one, not just outside of us, but inside us. So I will go quiet, and please, Hub, are you going to offer us a musical response?
Yeah, well, I see the exterior problems, say, energy. A very important thing in quantum mechanics is that there is lots and lots of energy. When we would use the energy that is available, there would not be any problem, because there's so much energy. That's a quantum mechanical fact. But quantum mechanics, officially, they in our culture, quantum mechanics is not really much thought of. Also, when quantum mechanics would be a prime feature in our culture, then alternative medicine would not be attacked anymore, because quantum mechanics indicates that there is a whole mystery unsolved mysteries, all mysteries with how things work. So it's very difficult to attack alternative medicine the way they do it now. If we would take heed of quantum mechanics, so and there is the I see other items, global warming, never-ending wars, depleting organic habitats. Well, there's so many subjects. Most people do not know that only 4 what do you say? What is the word? 4 of the 10,000 bits of atoms in the air is CO2. Only 4 of the 10,000, even less. And CO2 is utterly necessary for life itself, because when a plant grows, it needs light, water, and CO2. So I would think that I would encourage people to study things and to think about it and to study it yourself, because in essence, things are not complicated at all. So, I mean, I have not studied officially science, although I was always very good at it. But we should not be. They tell us that we cannot think about those things, but we can. Ages before that, we could not think about religion, because a priest would tell us how it is. What were we to think about it? What will be I'm raised Roman Catholic, and I had in a way I had to obey the Pope. But now they change it. I have to obey scientists. But I can think as well. And there's leadership. Leadership is mentioned. Leadership breakdown. Why is true self-leadership essential? How can there be true self-leadership if you don't think about things, if you don't figure things out, if you don't do research for real? So that would be my basic response about what I see appearing on the screen, on my screen.
Okay.
Well, I'm sure that not everyone would agree to what I said, but
That's all right.
I have to say it.
That's all right. I thought you raised your hand because you wanted to play
some music.
Yeah, well, I would like to play as well.
Okay, so give us please 60 seconds of music here, so we can still reflect on the question with your music, please.
Yeah, thank you.
This was gorgeous and a way to feel into what enables us to tenderly hospice the dying epoch and caringly midwife the birth of a new one. Please, Nusha.
Yes, that was so beautiful. It brought tears to my eyes, and so then I just closed my eyes and thought, I wonder what my tears are about. And what came up was a little bit of what a lot of people had shared about the fears, and you shared that this naturalness. I think Rita spoke about that, and we have everything we need on planet Earth to create the peace, the joy, all of it. And I think Kyriaki spoke about the fears that are in their way. So as I had the tears and I closed my eyes, it was like I could imagine this myself and the gifts I have to share and the contribution I can make, and how those fears are in the way of that. And like the music that Hub played was just it was so beautiful. It was like that image just came, that everyone has what we need. We're just in our own way. And what Hub said about self-leadership is that, I had sadness about the lack of leadership. I'm having the sadness now. And to speak about what you said about, the energy depletion. It's the depletion of watching those things, of watching just the lack of leadership, and why don't we have it? And it's, I think it's our school systems. We're not taught to, as who beautifully said, I was taught to listen to the church and do the right things. And then now it's the scientists, and it's like, I love this space because it's like, listen to yourself, get out of your own way. And I think some of the things you asked about, how can we have more energy? And I think it's just accepting what is. It's accepting this, what we're seeing, the sadness of what is, and creating the space to cry and to say, like, what I'm feeling right now is just sadness. And I think that Chinese symbol, there's a symbol about opportunity and danger, like it's the same symbol. So yes, we're at a very sad time, and there's a mass opportunity, and I see that it's in each one of us. So yeah, to step up and to take the self-leadership. I think that's what I saw in the short music that Hugh played, and when he shared, it was, it really inspired me to share. So thank you all for everything you shared, and thank you, Aviv, for this space and for creating this. And I really see how you're allowing everyone's gifts to come out with more courage, and I think it's so beautiful. And I'm getting tears again.
That's all right, Nusha.
I really think that's the key for each of us, to have the courage to say, you know what, or what are my gifts, and to share them.
Yeah.
To speak, yeah.
And sometimes tears are the lubricants of a groundbreaking possibility.
So
yes.
True. Stay with us, because not that we will solve all the problems that are on the screen now, but I'm about to lead us into some fortifying spaces as well. Please, David, let's bring your voice.
Yeah, first of all, thank you again from me as well for this. And what a wonderful question. It articulated something which has been in my head for quite some time, really. But I've never actually thought about it like this. So the first thing would be, it struck me that to be able to hospice the dying and allow the new to be reborn, the first thing is to admit one's in that situation. We must first admit that we are in a dying epoch. And I think that alone is a huge step, and a one that's too big for many people. And then what enables that then became my question. And part of it, I think, is being asked it. Being asked it in a context and company which is supportive of being able to think it through or to be with it. So yeah, tears, definitely. That's part of it. And then the third thing is actually a continually emerging clarity. It's not like once and then I know. It's just a constant working out of a clarity about what is dying and what is not. Because not everything's dying, right? If everything was dying, that would be really bad news. It's the epoch that's dying. So what do we need to let go of, and what do we not need to let go of? What in fact do we need to reclaim or see more clearly as being of value? So that would be my answer to that question, for the time being at least.
Thank you, David. This is beautifully and potently framed, and the invitation from you. This is not a sudden, one-time enlightenment process. We're in the very late, but also in the early days of this transition. Please, Elite, let's bring up a painting.
Hi, everyone. I've never done a painting at 5 a.m. before. I'm in the Southern Hemisphere. So there's a bit of lag time because I'm using watercolor and I can't hold it up if the water might slide off the page. But I sort of started with your first question, and gosh, there's been so much that's been going through me while I've been doing it. And it just really connected me to natural processes. And like Rita was saying, and it kind of, I just saw these leaves falling and the drying out of things which don't get the moisture and the energy anymore. And the naturalness of that. And that it goes on, there's the internal, you see it on the external, but there's an internal in that. And also I was registering where the energy goes. And gosh, so much energy goes in emoting about things. Not to say that as there isn't a natural process that goes with that, but also it's caused me to think about leadership and taking on more responsibility than is our due, because really we are responsible for our own lives, but we have people that come into our sphere. And I know my cousin's son, he has a natural leadership ability, and he's been in the army, but he's taken on so much responsibility for other people that he's almost had a nervous breakdown twice. So clearly that's not really balanced. And so it causes me to think about looking to the balances in ourselves. And what are we responsible for unto ourselves? What do we need to nourish? I noticed when I was doing this painting how cooling it was to my systems.
Right.
And how it caused me to really be very stepped back in myself. I mean, I was just listening and I was just processing. And the soul was just engaged.
Well, isn't that really the huge big clue for this time, that one of the challenges we are facing, one of the challenges the soul faces as the orchestrator of the human enterprise, one that facilitates all the different faculties, the brain, the mind, and everything else? Isn't there a clue in what you're describing that finding the methodologies, the inner technology to process things in a way that cools, it's like a nuclear process we understand, needs a cooling system around it. What if part of what we're seeing in this transitional epoch is that we are much more, we are entering a much more intensified conductive time, and in the first place, it appears and expresses itself in the lower manifestation of where the center of gravity of human attention and consciousness is, and that turns to run hot. And could it be that what we need increasingly with leadership is process leadership, people that are able to lead processes at the highest level of government, by the way, as well. As you know, I help senior leaders in companies do this, to think more clearly by conducting processes that enables us to cool even in the face of pressure. So, thank you. Well, we are nearly 90 minutes into this. Do we need a bio break here, or we do?
Yeah, I
Okay.
think it'd be a good time for a break.
Okay. How about if we do 10 minutes bio break? Let me do this, actually. I am going to do this. I don't want to keep this slide on the break, so I'm going to bring up the next slide and go to a break with that. And what the next slide is the beginning of the articulation of the premises for the journey of the soul. And premise one is that the soul is intimately connected with all the knowledge that exists on the planet. And premise two, and here we will go to break, is that the soul is equipped and ready to meet the challenges and opportunities of this time with all the know-how it needs. So when we come back from the break, I'll explain how I mean knowledge here, because I'm going to lift knowledge from a general head conceptual knowledge to something else, and we'll talk about premise two. Let's take a 10 minutes break and play some music. In the meantime, please, Rob, thank you.
along with our website at portalsofperception.org. Portals is also available on YouTube and on all podcast platforms, as well as social media. You can become an active member and join the conversation in community events. And you can help us get the word out by liking this content and by sharing it with your friends.